Imagine you are walking through knee-deep snow. You haven't eaten a full meal in 3 days. The wind is blowing so hard you can barely hear your own footsteps. You are wearing animal hides, but the cold air is pushing right through the gaps where the pieces overlap. Your fingers are completely numb. You are carrying a heavy wooden spear, but your grip is so stiff you might drop it. The sun is going down, and the temperature is dropping with it. You have to find a rock shelter. You have to build a fire, but you have to do it before your body simply stops moving. Today, winter is just an inconvenience. You put on a heavy coat, turn up the heat in your car, and wait for spring. But for a human being 20,000 years ago during the last glacial maximum, the ice wasn't just weather. It was a massive daily physical struggle that demanded thousands of calories just to survive until morning. So how did they do it? Cold doesn't just make you shiver, it physically drains the energy out of your muscles. A human body exposed to freezing temperatures burns calories at an incredible rate just to maintain a core temperature of 98.6 degrees. Every step you take through deep snow requires lifting your leg higher and pushing through physical resistance. Without modern thermal fabrics, your muscles have to work constantly, spasming and shivering to generate heat. And that creates a terrifying math problem. You are burning thousands of extra calories just to stay warm, which means you have to find thousands of extra calories in a landscape where almost nothing grows. The archaeological record shows just how extreme this caloric deficit was. Isotopic analysis of Neanderthal and early modern human bones from Ice Age Europe reveals a diet that was almost entirely meat. There were no berries to forage in the snow, no tubers to dig up from the frozen ground. You had to hunt. And if you failed, you didn't just get hungry. Your body stopped being able to generate heat, and you froze. But chewing on lean meat wasn't enough. In fact, eating only lean muscle meat in a freezing environment can actually kill you. It's a condition called protein poisoning, or rabbit starvation. Your liver can only process so much protein before toxic byproducts build up in your blood. To survive the ice, you didn't just need meat. You needed dense, heavy fat. Fat is the most calorie-dense food available, and ancient humans went to extreme lengths to get it. Archaeologists frequently find animal bones at Ice Age hunting sites that have been deliberately smashed to pieces. These aren't just cut marks from scraping meat off the bone. These are heavy impact fractures. Someone sat in the freezing cold, placed a horse or reindeer femur on a flat rock, and smashed it with another stone. They were extracting the marrow. Scraping out that thick, calorie-dense paste and eating it was the literal fuel that kept their internal organs functioning. It was a messy, exhausting physical chore, but it was the exact action required to balance the caloric math of the ice. But eating fat doesn't matter if all that body heat escapes right into the air. So you have to cover your skin. At first glance, that seems easy. You hunt a reindeer, you take the skin, and you wrap it around your shoulders. But a loose draped skin is a death sentence in a blizzard. The wind simply blows underneath it, carrying your body heat away. You have to trap the heat against your skin, and that means you need tightly fitted clothing. This is where human survival required serious physical labor. Around 20,000 years ago, bone needles start appearing in the archaeological record across Eurasia. These aren't crude tools. They are carved from bone or ivory, polished smooth, with tiny, perfectly drilled eyes for threading cord. You don't make a tool like that unless you are doing precise manufacturing. Ancient humans were literally puncturing thick animal hides and stitching them together tightly. They made tailored pants, tunics, and boots. They layered fur on the inside against the skin to trap warm air, and leather on the outside to block the wind. Someone had to sit down, pierce thick leather thousands of times by hand, and pull tight seams just so a hunter could walk outside without dying. And they had to walk outside, because surviving the ice meant leaving the fire to confront the biggest, most dangerous animals on Earth. Hunting in these conditions was a brutal, terrifying physical ordeal. You aren't just tracking an animal. You are stepping carefully on slick ice, trying not to twist an ankle, because a broken leg out here means you can't walk back to camp. Imagine you are 3 miles from your fire. You finally track down a massive reindeer. You pull your arm back to throw your spear, but your foot slips on the ice. The heavy wooden shaft hits a rock, and the stone tip shatters into useless pieces. Your only weapon is gone. The temperature is dropping. What do? You can't just go back to camp empty-handed because your group is starving. Tell me in the comments what your immediate next move would be. Now, let me tell you what an ancient human actually did. They didn't freeze up in panic. When the situation got desperate, they didn't rely on some clever, abstract strategy. They relied on a simple, literal, everyday action. They sat right down in the snow, pulled a backup chunk of raw flint from a leather pouch, and started hitting it with a piece of heavy bone. It is a physical process called knapping. By striking the rock at a precise angle, you force razor-sharp flakes to break off. Archaeologists frequently find concentrated piles of flaking debris at temporary Ice Age kill sites. This proves hunters carried spare rocks specifically to rebuild their weapons in the field. Within 20 minutes, using completely numb hands, they chipped out a brand new point, tied it to the wood wood with animal sinew and got right back up. And they had to get back up quickly, because you weren't the only one tracking that animal. Massive Ice Age wolves are smelling it too. They are starving, just like you. You literally had to stand over a bleeding animal in the snow and defend your kill from packs of aggressive predators using nothing but that freshly tied rock. It was an exhausting, terrifying cycle. But securing meat and clothing only solved half the problem, because surviving the day didn't mean you survived the night. You can't just sleep on the open ice, and natural caves were incredibly rare on the frozen tundra. So what do you do when the wind is howling at 60 miles an hour and there is absolutely no wood to build a shelter? You don't try to invent a complex architectural system. You perform a simple, literal, everyday action. You pick up the heavy bones of the mammoth you just ate and you stack them in a circle. Archaeologists in Eastern Europe have uncovered massive circular foundations made entirely of mammoth skulls, jaws, and tusks, dating back 15,000 years. They didn't build these because they wanted to make art. They built them because mammoth bones were heavy enough to interlock and hold down a thick roof of animal hides against hurricane-force winds. Inside those heavy bone walls, survival shifted from a physical struggle to a social one. You absolutely could not survive the Ice Age alone. You needed a group to hunt, to sew, and to keep the fire from going out while you slept. But keeping a group of stressed, exhausted people together in a cramped, dark space for months requires massive cooperation. When you look at how early human society developed, you don't need a complex, abstract metaphor about the dawn of civilization. You just look at a literal, everyday action. People sitting shoulder to shoulder around a small fire, talking. By sharing basic information about which way the reindeer herds were moving or showing a younger hunter exactly how to angle a stone strike, they turned a freezing shelter into a classroom. The harshness of the ice forced humans to lock themselves inside together. And in doing so, it forged the intense social cooperation that ultimately let us conquer the rest of the planet. For decades, we looked at the Ice Age and assumed it was a dark, miserable time where humans barely clung to existence. We thought the cold restricted us, but that completely misses what was actually happening. The extreme physical hardship of the ice didn't pause human survival. It forced us to adapt. Because the environment was so deadly, humans couldn't rely on gathering fruit or sleeping in open camps. They had to figure out how to smash bones for fat. They had to figure out how to drill tiny holes in bone to sew tight clothing. They had to figure out how to rebuild shattered tools in the middle of a blizzard. The unforgiving nature of the cold forced early humans to solve physical problems. Every bone needle, every smashed femur, and every deeply carved spear point was a direct, literal response to an environment that was constantly trying to kill them. The ice didn't stop them. It forced them to figure out exactly how to stay alive. The cold was brutal, and the daily physical labor required just to stay warm is hard to even comprehend today. But humans engineered their way through it, solving the problems of the ice one literal step at a time. But what happens when the threat isn't the weather outside, but something happening inside your own body? How did ancient humans actually survive getting sick?